Okay, so the Prague Pro is happening this weekend and the hype is real. Why? Because we're finally going to see Chris Bumstead step into open bodybuilding. This is a huge moment. CBum is making his open debut and I've got to say, I'm excited to see what he brings to the stage. I haven't done a prediction for this show yet, and since we're only hours away from prejudging, I figured now's the perfect time to share my thoughts and predictions. So let's talk about the competitors. You can check out the full list, but let's be honest here. While there are some strong names, we all know who the true favorites are. Sure, in bodybuilding anything can happen, but the truth is that the unexpected is, well, unexpected for a reason. We're here to focus on the ones who are most likely to bring it. And my top 5 for the Prague Pro 2024, in no particular order right now, is this: Andrea Presti, Chris Bumstead, Marcello De Angelis, also known as Horse MD, Martin Fitzwater, and Sean Clarida. Now, I want to make it clear. The order of these top 5 could go any way, depending on who nails their conditioning and who doesn't. Bodybuilding is all about who shows up in the best shape on the day of the show, and these 5 athletes are no strangers to bringing their best. But let's assume that everyone comes in at or near their peak. If that happens, how do I see this playing out? The judging is going to be tricky, no doubt about it. We've got a mix of size, structures, and experience levels, and honestly, I think the panel is going to have a tough job ahead of them. I wish Tyler Mannion were going to be on the judging panel this weekend because I'd love to hear his thoughts and analysis afterward, but unfortunately I don't think he'll be there. For me, the 3 biggest names are clear: Chris Bumstead, Martin Fitzwater, and Sean Clarida. These guys really don't need much of an introduction, but let's just break it down for a second. We've got Chris Bumstead, who's not just any classic physique champion. He's a 6-time Mr. Olympia in classic physique. He's the GOAT of that division, a household name in bodybuilding, and his presence alone elevates this show to another level. Then there's Sean Clarida. He's a 2-time 212 Mr. Olympia, and he's already proven that he can hang with the big boys in the open division. He's won open shows before, and we know he'll be bringing insane conditioning to the stage. And finally, there's Martin Fitzwater. He's coming off a 4th place finish at this year's Mr. Olympia, which is a huge accomplishment. Martin's been consistent, he's shown steady improvement, and he's definitely going to be one of the biggest threats in Prague. But let's not overlook the other 2, Andrea Presti and Horse MD. Andrea has been on the Olympia stage before and has several pro show victories under his belt. He didn't qualify for the Olympia this year, but it wasn't due to lack of effort. He's been going up against some of the best in the world. This year, he's had some tough losses, placing 2nd behind big names like Samson Dauda and Hunter Labrada. He even had a controversial 2nd place against Bruno Santos, where some people thought he should have taken the win. So Andrea's no slouch. He's a seasoned competitor who's capable of upsetting the favorites if he nails his conditioning. And then there's Marcello De Angelis, or as he's known, Horse MD. He's the wild card in this top 5 for sure. He got his pro card just last year and has been creating a lot of buzz. He's got an incredible structure, a lot of muscle for his frame, and a very aesthetic look. But he's yet to win a pro show and he hasn't qualified for the Olympia yet. That's why in my prediction I'm putting Horse MD in 5th place for the Prague Pro. He's got all the potential in the world, but I think the other 4 are just going to be too well conditioned and too seasoned for him to overcome this time. And as good as his aesthetics are, I think the competition here is just a step ahead in terms of conditioning and overall presence. Alright, so let's move up the list to 4th place. Now, this pick might surprise a lot of you because I know Sean Clarida is a fan favorite and most predictions I'm seeing online have him in the top 3. But here's the thing, yes, Sean will probably be the most conditioned guy on stage. He's also likely going to be the most complete with very few weaknesses. But the reality is that he's giving up over 50 pounds to the rest of the lineup. In an era where size still matters, even if aesthetics are more appreciated, that's a huge gap to make up. His conditioning and his overall completeness will count for a lot, but if the other guys show up in top shape, I just don't see him cracking the top 3. So for me, Sean Clarida is my 4th place pick. Now, let's get to the real battle, the top 3. This is where things get interesting because I think a lot of people are underestimating Andrea Presti. Sure, most are looking at this show as a showdown between Martin Fitzwater and Chris Bumstead, and to be fair, if Martin shows up in the same condition we've seen him this year, whether it was in Detroit, New York or the Olympia, he's going to be incredibly hard to beat. If he's at his best, Martin is my pick for the win. Andrea, as solid as he is, just isn't at that level yet. And Chris, well, Chris is a bit of an unknown right now. See, here's the thing, if CBum were doing a full open prep, dedicating an entire year to it, he might actually be my top pick. His frame is absolutely built for open. He's got that incredible structure, those wide shoulders, narrow waist, and a flow to his physique that's hard to match. But here's the context. He's coming off a classic physique prep and only had 5 weeks to pivot to open. That's a huge ask. Classic and open are two different beasts, and while I think Chris is capable of a top 10 finish at the Olympia in the open division if he committed to it fully, that's not the scenario we're dealing with here. The most interesting clash for me at the Prague Pro will be Chris Bumstead versus Andrea Presti. If both guys come in shape, I think this battle will steal the show. Andrea's been looking fantastic this year, and there are even some who believe he should have beaten Hunter Labrada at the Italy show, so I'm not convinced that Chris can surpass Andrea, especially given the short turnaround from classic to open. So here's my final prediction for the top 3. In 3rd place, I have Chris Bumstead. I think he's going to look phenomenal. His aesthetics, his presentation, and his overall flow will absolutely stand out. But the size and fullness he's giving up to the other top contenders will likely keep him out of the top 2. In 2nd, I'm placing Andrea Presti. He's been on a great run this year, and I think he's in a position to surprise a lot of people. And finally, my pick to win the 2024 Prague Pro is Martin Fitzwater. He's got the mass, the conditioning, and the momentum to take this one. So there it is, my prediction for Chris Bumstead's open debut at the Prague Pro 3rd place. I think he'll bring enough size to make it competitive, but the reality of seasoned open competitors with full-time preparation will probably edge him out. But hey, that's just my take. What do you all think? I'd love to hear your predictions, so drop them in the comments and let's get ready for an incredible show.